Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the BOCC. If you want to join me, we'll rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Mortensen, I would ask you for review of the minutes.
Good morning, everyone. As usual, I reviewed the minutes of the activities of last week and I move to approve of the minutes.
Any questions on the minutes? I see none. Call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you. We'll run through the consent agenda today. Under call for bids, we have a call for bids for rental equipment used for public works. Call for bids that'll be scheduled for November 7th, 2023. Call for bids for culvert pipe, beveled in sections, couplers, and other drainage system products for the period of January 2024 for actually the year 2024. That's also scheduled for November 7th, 2023. Agreements, contracts. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Consolidated Diking Improvement District number 2, City of Woodland, Port of Woodland, and Cowlitz County to authorize a professional services agreement to complete the hydrologic, and hydraulic drainage evaluation of the Woodland bottoms. That's a project being taken on by District 2. It's no cost to the county. We're just part of the memorandum, the agreement to do it. Memorandum of understanding with Lower Columbia College Foundation for the reimbursement related to softball field turf project at Tamil Shanner. This is a $320,000 project, for which the county committed $60,000 to getting that done. Completion letter to J.H. Kelly for the museum HVAC replacement project. That system was had theft and damage in it, and it was pretty much an insurance project that came in, and J.H. Kelly completed it for us. It was a total project of $176,060.88, and that one has been completed. Resolution certifying the 2024 budget for Silver Lake Flood Control District. We reviewed that. We banner over the use of certify, but basically what they're showing is on that budget, it shows a project revenue of $199,500 and expense of $111,610, and they have quite a bit of money in reserves, so it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do. Board correspondence, memo dated 10/4/23 from the judges of Cowlitz County Superior Court regarding the mental health tax, and letter dated 10/9/23 from Mike Moss regarding the acceptance of resignation of Jeff Orth. A letter dated 10/5/23 from Patrick Harbison, Cowlitz County Diking Engineer, regarding the Silver Lake Regulating Structure Inspection Report. These are public documents. If you have interest in out there, it's a 20-page document. It has goes over all the facets of the diking and all that stuff in Silver Lake. If you have an interest, it's a pretty thorough read. Letter dated 10/9/23 from Bill Weiss regarding Frank Morrison's daughter, and an affidavit of posting reservation for the month of September 2023. And vouchers in amount of $3,976,999.26. Questions, comments? Yeah.
comments and questions on two items. Number 4, agreements, contracts, bid awards, memorandum of understanding, Lower Columbia College Foundation for the reimbursement related softball field turf projects at Tam O'Shanter, the total amount. I presume the county paid this $60,000.
We committed that 60 to the project.
My question is, why in the hell is the county involved with Lower Columbia? If it's their project, shouldn't it come out of their budget? Not yours, not ours, not the taxpayers. Second, Tam O'Shanter, that's the city of Kelso. Why are we involved? Why is the county involved? Can you explain that?
Well,
We collect a lodging tax, and I
Yeah.
think this came out of the lodging tax.
That's
And
what I was
our
gonna say.
obligation is to spend that money for tourism. And I'm basically blind to what I would call political boundary lines. And so whether it's in Kelso or in Toutle, or it matters not to me. Is it a useful program? Does it have a promise to fulfill the obligation of improving the tourism here? And it fit the bill. Is it expensive? Absolutely expensive, but that's my continual, that's the lament I have.
The way the lodging tax expenditures go is that we have a committee made up of the users that are in the tourism business. And this money is available, and they meet and they review applications and say, you know, these projects are good. They have our support. We're in the industry. We think this will generate business. The purpose was to permit more tournament play, bringing teams from out of the area coming in there. And Kelso said, we don't have enough money to finish it. LCC said they'll be putting on tournaments there with the improved field. And it was, the committee made the recommendation. So.
Any questions, Mr. Dahl?
no, they explained it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, one of your former late presidents, George H. Bush, said, read my lips, no new taxes. Aren't you Republicans? You're all three Republicans, correct? And your party's mission is to reduce taxes. Why hasn't this lodging tax been eliminated?
It's interesting that there was a lot once you said we are during the campaign for this office. I was asked, do you think there should be a partisan position? And I said no. And as we're here, I have yet to have in the 7 years hit something where it says, oh, if I'm a Republican, I vote this, and if I'm a Democrat, I vote this. Same way, we don't look at district boundaries in the manner that people might actually expect. So we take every opportunity we possibly can not to increase taxes and to reduce them when we possibly can. Possibly is a big word there, and I don't know the nuances here, but it's something I'm not terribly uncomfortable with, the lodging tax per se. Do I like the fact that we tax people to come to visit us? No, I think that's kind of a cheap shot. You know, well, let's let them pay the fare because they're coming here and they're strangers. I don't buy that, but I cannot change the system all by myself.
But is not the office of commissioner a partisan office, Mr. Mortensen?
The office of commissioner is not very well defined. Is it a partisan job? I don't think it is, but I don't think liberty is a function of being Democrat or Republican. And I've never approached it that way. Am I a Republican and in the Republican Party? The answer is yes. Why is that? I tend to align more closely with the sense of government doesn't have the answers, while the other group seems to think government has the answers. It's just about that simple. Do I subscribe to everything? You ought to talk to some of the Republicans. When I was elected chairman of the party, somebody spun off the LCRU, Lower Columbia Republicans United, because they thought I wasn't Republican.
But yet we do have a Republican Party, we have a Democratic Party, and it is partisan, is it not?
My fidelity is towards you, not the party. Anyhow, that's my answer. I don't know.
Commissioner Weber, would you like to field that question?
Yes, it's by law, we have to list a party. Although interestingly, most elected officials in Cowlitz County have filed and run as independents. So, I mean, that's a trend.
Isn't
When
that
you and I
dodging
were
a bullet?
when you and I were growing up, there was only one Republican elected countywide, and that was the treasurer Gertrude Rivers.
Oh, you're forgetting Van Yenquist.
Well, he was
20
He
years.
was, but he also presided at a time when Republicans had a majority on this commission. So I'm not exactly sure where you're going with the question. I mean, it is what it is.
I'm just defining partisan Republican Democrat since the founding of this country. That's what I'm defining. You're a civics teacher. You ought to know that.
I do.
And don't forget George Washington's admonition about the parties.
Entangling alliances is.
And that one too, yeah.
And we have two carrier battle groups in the Mediterranean and one in the Formosa Straits, ready to start World War III. Is that adhering to George Washington? Do not get into foreign entanglements?
All I can say is that I tried to stop it, but Rick Dahl was too strong.
Yeah. You had a question on another one too?
Would you like to get in on this partisan, political parties?
I'm registered as a Republican, but as has been stated here, I don't really, I don't think down party lines when I look at things. I'm conservative in nature. I think I've said from the beginning, what I think of is the citizens that inhabit this county and how we do the best for them. That's what drives me.
But yet
An
you
R doesn't drive me, a
registered as a
D doesn't
Republican.
drive me, an I doesn't drive me, none of that.
Then why did you register as a Republican? Why not independent?
Because I think I align more with conservative values. I'm not saying the party always aligns with me, but I align more with conservative values, and that's where I fit.
So the Republicans are not partisan.
I don't know where you want to go with this. Can we go on to business here?
That's a good way to avoid a question. I like.
Well, I'm not trying to avoid, this is a conversation we can have out in the hall if you're that interested, but we
No,
got things to do here.
it was very well avoided. I like the answers.
Okay.
Okay, now hell is going to freeze over. A liberal Democrat is going to support a Republican county commissioner. Specifically you, Commissioner Mortensen. Considering Mr. Weiss's letter, which I have in front of me, and knowing he was head of the corrections department for 30 years in Cowlitz County, and interviewed me for a corrections officer job 35 years ago. And Frank Price, who was jail superintendent along with Weiss. Between the two of them in 30 years, they never lost a prisoner at the county jail until the Superior Court took the jail away from the commissioners. And then I don't know if the commissioners have it back. But in that time, they lost 4 prisoners to death after they left office, Mr. Weiss and Mr. Price. And the part I don't agree even though Mr. Weiss has a lot of letters after his name, I only have one set of letters after my name. It concerns, this thing has legs. It's walking all over the place. Concerning the person's daughter who died of OD. And I can't believe he wrote this statement, knowing him as I do. This is a statement that shows how ignorant one can be. I think that was directed at you. And then he goes on about the book of AA and the steps and all this. And I think I made this point before when the Board of Health met. Having personal experience as a professional in the field, firefighter EMTB, having family members die of addiction and having to respond to the house fire. Having a relative who spent 30 years in the Tacoma Police Department lose his son to an addiction. Now you want to talk about experience, there's experience, losing his son. And this is what was drummed in our heads when we were training as firefighters or police cadets down in Portland under that pissed off Jewish paratrooper I was telling you about, who had an MD, PhD, 30 years experience. If you have an addiction, and I'm at a loss as to Mr. Weiss forgot about this, and it was true in my own family. The only person that can help in an addiction, any kind of addiction, pharmaceutical, drugs, alcohol, you name it. And this was drummed into our heads 35 years ago, my head 35 years ago. The only person that can help is the person itself until he admits he needs help. That's the only way you can save a life within an addictive personality. And I'm surprised that Mr. Weiss didn't put that in his letter. So everybody that's gnawing on your hind end is wrong. And that comes from a liberal Democrat supporting a Republican. Now hell has frozen over. That's all I got.
Hi, my name is Scott Olson, and I just want to say I have always been a believer that it has nothing to do with once you're elected, what party you might be, or some of your own biases one way or the other. It has to do getting down to the very fact that you've been elected to represent the people within the entity that you are elected from. In this case, it's the county, so everything within the county. So I appreciate that you don't feel like because you may be Republican or you may be Democrat, that has nothing to do with how you vote and some of those kind of things, because the voters they don't expect that. They just expect you guys to continue to do what you're doing and keep that bigger picture in mind. It's more long range, or it's bigger scope to understand how those benefits there. And is it a perfect world? It's not. You try to do the best you can, but things like a lodging tax does give money available, and it's shared with people who benefit from the lodging that's here, but it gives you an opportunity to solicit and promote additional bringing of people to the community and taking advantage of the events we have, like softball tournaments and baseball tournaments and Highlander games and all those kind of things that bring a lot of money into our community, which again is a blessing and part of that bigger picture. So I think you can nitpick every little thing, and we don't know all the whys necessarily, but I think as elected people, we have that responsibility, as you have all stated, to represent the people in the best way you can and explain this is why we think this was a good thing and this is why we don't think it's a good thing and why we aren't in favor of it. And I think you've always been clear, at least to me, that that's the case. And I just wanted to say that. And thanks.
Any other questions or comments on consent? Seeing none, I would accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve today's consent agenda as presented.
Yes. See nobody approaching, no hands. Call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you. On the motion items. Health and Human Services. You got a stack today.
Morning, Gina James, Health and Human Services. Yes, we have a couple items on the agenda today. Okay. We will start. Item number 1 is a contract amendment with the Washington State Department of Ecology to close out and deobligate unspent funds from a water quality grant that we had. The grant ended last year. We've finished up that work and the state is deobligating the remaining funds that were left unspent, which was about $12,000. So this is just deobligating those funds so the state can use them elsewhere.
Okay,
And the research that was done was merely descriptive rather than leading to a recommendation of next steps for improving water quality at the lake.
There's a lot of data. The full report is up on our website if you'd like to read through. I'm not a technical expert on all of the data points, but there was a lot of data collected multiple times throughout the year, multiple areas of Silver Lake, and all of that data is included in the report. There are some slight recommendations as that are within the report that the advisory committee and have sort of discussed and built into the management plan as well. So there are some recommendations. My understanding is that they're continuing those discussions and looking at if they want to pursue any of them.
So we actually have 2 citizens groups that are involved. In this case, we just received the budget from the Flood Control District, an elected body that consists primarily of the property owners along the shore of the lake. And then a little bit larger group, the Silver Lake Water Advisory Committee, SLWAC. This is, I think is how we pronounce that acronym. And they are the ones that assisted in some of the data gathering and
Yes.
so we can expect some recommendations from either one of those 2 groups based on the data that was collected.
I know they're exploring some different things. And as I mentioned, there's some brief recommendations mentioned in the final report that's posted on our webpage. And I think they're continuing those discussions to look at what they might want to pursue. I do know they're interested in continuing to test the lake throughout the year. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
any questions, comments? Seeing none,
Actually, I'll make a comment.
Yeah.
I like to think, I think pretty positively of the citizen groups involved in here. And data collection is something that they seem pretty able to do and happy to do. And I think that may explain why things they didn't spend all the money. You can do good work without spending all the money.
That's true. Yeah. Yep.
I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contract amendment 18-018 as has been discussed.
Okay. Questions, comments from the public? See no hands? Okay, I would call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you.
Although I always hate giving money back, but I understand.
Now, when you head into this next one, I'm just so I'm pretty sure I know where this is, but this is similar to last time. This number 9 is basically an overall thing, and then the following items come out of number 9.
Yes, so number
Okay.
9 is our state contract allocating funds for this fiscal year. Items 10 and 11 are pass-through contracts with the providers. I'm sorry, 10, 11, and 12 are pass-through contracts. So we're allocating some of those funds from the state contract to community providers. Item number 13 is a separate contract.
Okay,
Okay, so as mentioned, item number 9 is our contract with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services, the Developmental Disabilities Administration. This is funding that we see each year. The state is responsible for making sure that certain services are available in each community for developmental disabilities services. This particular contract is for employment and day services, as well as child development services for ages birth to 3 years old. So let's see. It's a combination of state and Medicaid funds. The state actually, it's a sort of a match. The state will match Medicaid funds. That's where the funding comes from for this contract. They determine our budget based on the number of eligible individuals in our community receiving services. So they look at the number of individuals, it's called their acuity level, which determines the level of support an individual may need. So there's low, medium, or high. A high acuity would indicate a high level of support. A low acuity would indicate a lower level of support. So that's our state contract. It's 1-year contract. It's a little over $2 million. We are allocating a portion of that in pass-through contracts. We have 2 contracts that aren't on the agenda today that will be at a future meeting. So we have item number 10 is a pass-through contract with LifeWorks. Item 11 is with a provider called Employers Overload, and item 12 is with Compass Career Solutions. The 2 contracts that aren't on the agenda today are with Goodwill and the Progress Center. So those 2 will be at a future meeting. We don't allocate 100% of the funding in these pass-through contracts, partly because we want to see how services go. We monitor that throughout the year. And then if we need to make adjustments, having some of the funding still at our level helps us to be able to do that and make changes if we need to. So with that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions. I'm happy to talk further about the specific services and clients and whatnot.
how does, you say the state determines the budget off the number. Where do they get the number?
They look at who is signed up in the DSHS system. So who's eligible for developmental disabilities services.
Have we seen this number change much over the years?
We have not. The funding amount has gone up slightly. And this year, so our budget last year was about 1.7 million. This year it's about 2 million. It did go up because the legislature changed some of the program rules so individuals can be in both employment and day services at the same time. It used to be they had to pick one or the other. And so they've increased the budget because of that.
And these are all in reimbursement programs?
Correct.
So services has to be rendered and then we bill.
Yep. The providers submit to us, we verify, and then we submit to the state for reimbursement.
Can you describe a little bit about the day services for the the older clients? Progress Center, of course, takes care of the preschoolers, but day services for the other folks.
Sure. So the day services originally was intended for individuals who were in employment and maybe have reached retirement age and are no longer want to work, but want to do other activities. And so the day program was to help keep individuals connected with community activities, to go out and do activities like you or I would do, where we might go bowling or go get a coffee, and be engaged in our community and do those types of activities. It has expanded a little bit, so it's not so narrowly focused on individuals who reach retirement age. And as I mentioned, the legislature made some changes so that it's has kind of opened up to all eligible individuals if they choose to do that.
And there are situations where the disabilities are progressive, so they might have been able to work, but no longer are able to, and that's the other alternative.
Yes.
Thank you. And if I remember correctly, we have had some situations where money has gone back and been reallocated by the state because the clients haven't used the services.
Correct. Yeah. So I think I mentioned last year, our contract was about 1.7 and we utilized about 1 million of that. So the state just keeps the rest and
we discussed just before the beginning of the meeting, so these aren't programs to cure somebody of something. It's a program that may last for quite a long time to help people to cope with the situation over which they have a disability that isn't going to go away.
correct.
So on average, how long do people stay on the program?
It can be quite some time. The state considers this service a long-term support. And when individuals are found to have a developmental disability, it's determined prior to the age of 18 and it's expected to continue indefinitely.
Okay.
And so that's why it's considered a long-term support. Commissioner Weber mentioned sometimes life events can happen that change, the duration of when they're in the program. Sometimes individuals choose not to work any longer or move from the area to be with, different family or what have you, but it can be sometime, it can be shorter. We've had clients in the program for 30 years and have worked at the same place of employment for 30 years, which is really exciting. And we've had individuals in the program for a short period of time and they have said, thank you for helping me get a job. I don't need your services anymore. So.
Do you have any numbers?
I don't, but I can look into that a little bit.
In your spare time, I'd be curious. If you don't have spare time, I understand also. So the term developmental means to me that in fact, there is a notion of improving something. And at some point, we reach an age where we're not developing. I'm a little hesitant to use these expressions, but you see what I'm asking. Is there a category where, for example, I say I'm 58 years old, I'm in a wheelchair, and that'll always be the case. Is that still developmental disability, or are there other programs?
Developmental disability is typically some type of intellectual or neurological condition that is interfering with your ability to do your daily living activities. So if it were purely a mobility issue, it may not be considered a developmental disability. It depends on your situation.
Okay, thank you. Item 10, 11, and 12 are very closely tied together. Is item 13 in that group also?
Item 13 is separate. It is related to developmental disabilities, but it is a separate contract.
It has, it's been my experience that the developmental disabilities do last a lifetime, but one of the first summer jobs that I had was working for the YMCA in a program called Camp Good Times, which was designed for young adults, teenagers with developmental disabilities, and here in this community. And we've maintained connections
Mhm.
for 55, 60 years. And, you know, I've watched several of them grow and pass away and go to jobs and retire from jobs. And it is a part of our culture that is oftentimes easy to forget, but it is an improvement in the quality of life for them
Mhm.
to have access to these kinds of services,
Yeah.
especially if they can figure out a way to have some gainful employment and make a contribution. So it is something that is one of those good things to do. And if the money isn't spent because it is a reimbursable type thing, it doesn't get wasted. So I'm certainly glad to support this. If there aren't any questions, I would like permission from the chair to go ahead and bundle these motions together. We're receiving from the state and identifying 3 agencies to receive those funds. I'll do that when we get done with the
Okay.
questions.
I would
Okay, I've
just-
got another question at the right time.
Yeah, I would just echo some of what Commissioner Weber said. I happen to know a young man that takes part in this, and you know, it's very important to them to be part of the community and part of society.
Mhm.
So I think when we have these, we can banner taxes and costs and all that stuff, but it comes to us and we get the ability to use it for some of this that I don't have a huge problem with it. So.
So Gene, I had one other question, kind of a clarifying question. We oftentimes talk about helping people with disabilities, and oftentimes they're substance use disorders, alcoholism. Those are not considered developmental disabilities. They don't qualify for this kind of assistance.
No, they do not. No. No, this definition is pretty clear. And as I mentioned, it has to be determined prior to the age of 18 that an individual has a developmental disability.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I could ask.
Oh,
Tim,
go-
Talk all day. Go ahead.
You are the administrator of these contracts.
HHS, yes.
Yeah, and how much of an admin fee do we charge?
It's up to 7%.
Okay, and typically you're under that, if I recall correctly. And then in part of that, you do spot checking to see that things make sense.
Each year we have on-site audits that we do with the providers. The state also comes and visits us to make sure we're doing things appropriately as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Gina, I almost want to give you a hand. You know what I mean? For all the work she does, are you kidding me? And all the things that she knows, it's crazy. So I have one question is, for $2 million, what's the number of people that are on this program?
So there's 134 adults and about looking at the child development services, we serve about 84 children in that program.
So a couple hundred then?
Yeah.
Okay. For 2 million.
Up to 2 million.
You should have a starters gun like at a track meet to see who gets here first, right? Having known people from my class in high school who worked with the American Disabilities Act, and that causes a lot of expenses like sidewalk ramps and whatnot. And having one of my dad's brothers lose his leg at 23 when there were no programs, no workers' comp, no social security. It had to be paid by the family. And luckily, including my father, he had 4 working persons. They had to pay everything, his prosthetics and There was nothing until about 1948, where one of his former coworkers found a program and he got in on the ground floor of television in 1948. It was all paid for privately. Now, at the beginning of this year, Commissioner Mortensen, you were advocating no public money for these type of programs. You thought private charity, religious groups should be supporting this. Well, even back in 1932, there was no organization like that. And it didn't come about until after the Second World War, and it was very slow. From 45 to 60, there was nothing. It all had to be paid for by the family. No workers' comp. You were thrown on the train, but it had to be loaded first because they didn't want to waste any money, and then throw the injured man who was unconscious on the bumper of the train, and then he was picked up by a private ambulance at Catlin. That's where I'm going, Commissioner Dahl. All this came before. Now you're throwing, what, roughly $750,000 at all these three programs? Now, I'm wondering, what is your position on this all should be funded by private charity or religious groups? What's your position now, Commissioner Mortensen?
Well, first I would say you probably know more about me than I know about me, because I think if you look all the time I've been here, I have voted in favor of these programs. I have not voted against them anyhow. Maybe I've spoken a little bit against them. I think you're referring to a program earlier this year about sidewalk and a special something or other.
Which we have, paid by public dollars.
And that was an issue where, let me put it like this. I personally help people, but I really want to be careful not to put in a system that encourages abuse. How do you manage that? It's very difficult, because somebody will always say, well, I should get that too. And generally the standards go down. You really don't want to help someone who can help themselves, or the family can help them. By not wanting to help them, I mean, you can do more damage than good by doing that. There's a lot of good in family values, and I've got personal experiences as if that made much of a difference, but I could go ahead and talk about that. I am perfectly happy to vote in favor of this program. My last question was, and I've talked to Gina over the years, I really want to be sure that we're not enabling, but we are helping. And she knows that that's a crux of my concerns. Am I in favor of the taxation that goes into this? That's a much more difficult question, but you can't get there from where we are here today. You asked a question earlier about some things, and people get used to certain set of laws, a certain set of mores, and to change them overnight is really not a good thing to do, even if it's a good thing to have that change occur over a long amount of time. So I don't have any problem with these programs. I am concerned always about the efficiency, as I've mentioned.
Well, let me make your point on that earlier question. Early in the year 2023, I believe it was February. In my case, my family's case, we paid it all ourselves. We got no help for any government agency whatsoever. None at all.
What I'll say about this is we did have a discussion earlier this year, and the discussion revolved around the county does not have to accept the contract from the state. we can say, no, we don't want to, we want to see that. It doesn't change anything. The state just goes, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've listened to you enough. I believe the state will just go direct. So we made the decision, yes, we will accept these contracts from the state. So the public has a chance to see what's going on and can comment on them, can look at them. And we can always trying to institute anything that we can to keep them efficient. So that's why you're seeing these, because we made the decision that, yes, let's bring them through here. It's Any other questions on this? I would entertain your motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the contract with the state of Washington in the amount of a little over $2 million. And at the same time, add to that motion the agreements to disperse of $911,000 and $400 to LifeWorks, $52,000 to Employers Overload, and $277,040 to Compass Career Solutions, all designed to assist with developmental disability employment day services.
Okay. We have a motion, questions, comments?
Well,
Go ahead.
just a silly quick, my colleague started out, I would make a motion. Does that mean you made the motion?
Oh, you got me. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no hands. Would call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Also vote aye. Number 13.
So I did, before we go on, I just
Sure.
wanted to make, Mr. Dragich made a comment about how much we're dispersing. You were a little bit low on that. It comes up to about 1.24 million. I think you had a lower figure than that. I think you missed the LifeWorks contract.
Close enough for government work.
If you say so.
Okay, so item 13 is our contract, is a contract with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. This one is from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or DVR, you may have heard. So this particular program, this is a new contract that DVR is sending to help counties expand on employment services. So our adult employment services that we've just discussed, individuals are eligible for that program at age 21. And so that's typically when they're completing their high school program, because they can stay in high school until 21, and then they would transition or could transition to the adult employment program at that time. This particular contract is for counties to develop and implement what's called School to Work program, and would start at a younger age prior to 21. So 20 and 21 while you're still in high school, to start the employment process and start looking at employment while they're still finishing up their high school education. So this is a new program that the state is rolling out. This contract is just to explore the development of this program. We anticipate down the road that they will issue another contract that would be for direct service, which would be similar to the contracts we've just talked about, where we would have a state contract and then pass through with community providers. But this particular item is to pay for some staff time to work towards developing and implementing this School to Work program. As I mentioned, it kind of brings the age down a little bit from prior to age 21 while they're still in high school, and start looking at employment opportunities, work training, those types of things to get individuals ready for employment when they're transitioning out of their high school program.
So is it fair to translate the dollar amount in terms of FTEs, people that are going to be hired to work with these young adults? Somebody will be hiring two people to provide these services in Calhoun County.
So for this particular contract, it's to develop the program. We have the capacity with our current staff to do this work. I don't anticipate using all of the $241,000. It is an 18-month contract, so it's about a year and a half contract. But it's to reimburse some staff costs to develop, to participate in the statewide and regional meetings, to meet with local stakeholders, with the schools and with our local DVR staff and DDA staff, and work on developing this referral process, all of the components that are required to get students involved and get that information to the community, for example, too. So this particular contract is for that staff time. And then down the road, I anticipate a contract that would be for that direct service to help with the provider time, like similar to our other adult employment program.
So we have capacity to do this. I'm just trying to think, if we have capacity in there for staff to go and do this and still do whatever they do now, why do we need the money?
We don't have any other funds that can pay for them to do this work. So we
So-
have,
I know HHS is all, it doesn't come out of our general fund. It all comes from the state. So
Correct.
what they give you now says staff person B, they do this, this, and this, we'll reimburse you wage for these three things. And if you take, so what I'm hearing, then if you take that staff person that does A, B, and C, and you say, I want you to do D, E, F, now you don't get reimbursed?
correct.
So
Hmm.
what programs are not going to be done that were being done?
So just some internal shifting of some tasks, and I don't anticipate it will take a lot of time for this to build this type of program. This individual already works with DDA and DVR and the providers and already has that base of local partners that we need at the table to help with this. So there's sort of already that foundation there. It's just taking it to that next step.
Yeah. Ooh,
I'm happy, we can have some further conversation
I
too, if,
when they start handing out funds, there's strings somewhere that they want to start tightening at some point in time. I mean, it's just what I've seen over time. And so I'm trying to figure out what's this mean to us down the road? What happens? So
yeah.
I,
We do have to submit reports to the state, updating them on our progress with the program and developing the program. And as I mentioned, down the road, they would look to issue once they know we've done that groundwork, they would issue the direct service contract, which is similar to our adult employment contract, but it allows the age to come down to be able to get into employment and get some of that work experience before students are graduating from high school. Because right now it can't happen until they're done with high school, that they're in the employment program. And so there's some missed opportunities there with catching kids out of high school to help them, have those conversations with them that they can work and be productive members of this community and have a job and create their own income. So it's the end goal is that age for employment can come down a little bit younger to get that work experience before they leave high school.
does the state have numbers? Do they know how many they're missing?
We
Or
don't,
they
I don't
just-
know.
they
I'm not,
just have-
yeah, I'm not familiar. Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that we've had a program of providing educational assistance, special ed programs that, and they do age out. I'm very familiar with the kids
Mhm.
who age out at 21 and they're cast adrift, so to speak. But for years, these folks like LifeWorks and Goodwill Industries, they've been able to provide the job training. So I guess the question is, where's the data that we're missing the boat on this transition? There must be some numbers that say, yeah, these kids are just, they flounder because they're not ready, because they need that extra special training. Or not. I don't know. Seems like there seems like there's some missing data that would make me feel a lot better about $250,000 to do the staff support.
Yeah, I think what my two colleagues have pointed out is actually pretty important, but I'm going to go to a slightly different vein. I'm fully in support of that question and trying to find an answer. It will take a discussion
Sure.
to that. I'm often pretty nervous when we start to parcel things in granular form. Maybe it's because of my science background or training. I look for an overriding principle that ties everything together. And within that, I take a look at something that says ages 20 to 21. And I immediately am thinking, can I really tell the difference between a 19-and-a-half-year-old and a 20-year-old? And are these in math, if you put a square bracket, it means inclusive. If you put a round bracket, it means open. It means exclusive. So there are a bunch of questions that always bother me because they get translated into what the chairman was mentioning, things that develop in the future. This is an inception of a program, and going to what the gentleman said, is this the kind of thing that we would want to further put on the table and say is a good thing? And unfortunately, I'd like to take a guess, and I have a lot of respect for how you do your stuff. So I would be typically open to saying, well, let's see what HHS here can do with this, and let's see if it's worthwhile continuing that. But it turns out that that's a philosophically good thing to do, but in a practical sense, once you start a program, it almost never, I don't recall a program that just didn't continue and got expanded. So this looks like to me isn't this just something that could be subsumed in the other contracts? In fact, Commissioner Weber was asking specifically about the data. And I think we should have as a habit, take a look at things from what I would call a business case analysis. So you'd say, we're thinking of a product, and this is our target market, and you work out some stuff. But in order to do that, you do the market research and you figure everything out. It doesn't mean that you are going to make draw the same conclusion as the private outfit would do, because we're not a private outfit. We work in the government for the people. So the decision-making will be biased towards another approach. And that's totally acceptable, but we can't really do that if we don't have everything right before us. And that would be kind of my claim on this. So I would guess we want to send this back for further discussion.
That would be my preference, but I'm just one.
Yeah, so many years ago, I worked in special ed for a handful of districts in the state. And the 7 years that the kids have in high school, so from 14 to 21 when they're aged out, but especially that 18 to 21 age bracket was always educate or employment goal driven. And they had, and all the districts I worked for had a coordinator for that coordinated with DVR and coordinated with DVD to get these kids transitioned into that. So this feels like a duplication of that same position that most school districts, at least when I was working, already had. So that might just be a connection to make, that if I know the only local district I worked with was Kelso, and they had that position when I was working there. And then the districts in the Seattle area did as well. So it feels a little bit of a repetition if you would fund it as well. So just if it kicked back, that might be an area to look at.
Okay, thank you. I'll get more information on that.
Good morning. My name is Jim Hill, 1100 North 22nd Avenue, Kelso, Washington. First, I want to apologize for my attire. I left a Veteran Services meeting this morning to come in and address this specific issue. Commissioner Mortensen, I heard the most convoluted, extended, detailed, philosophical explanation of your position I think I've ever heard from the dais. This is a simple matter. You have an expert here that has described the program. I have a question. Do you know any developmentally challenged folks? Do you know their families? Do you know the problems? You can make it as complex as you want to. Present a remarkable argument. The fact of the matter, it boils down to human kindness and concern. It's that simple. Thank you. And I don't need a response.
I do actually know. I've known a young man since he was 7 years old and watched him go through high school, and he's had all these services in high school that you're explaining, and he works and so I don't know how he would have been missed. I've followed him. I know him today. And so anyway.
Just in general, for some reason, it's in vogue now for a politician to say, and I also have this and I experience it, and therefore I'm an expert in this. And I think we can be understanding and intellectually on point without having to experience every evil in the world. That now specifically to disability people, I have been challenged several times on those issues, and I tend to keep my private life largely to myself. But I think he would be rather surprised to find out about. The answer is yes, I have personal experience, as if that is relevant. And that's somewhat of an impertinent question you ask, but I feel like I'm getting tired of the impertinent questions as if they have a bearing on the matter. Anyhow, you got a little under my skin.
Yeah. And I don't think we're saying we don't want to do this. I just want to understand it clear. I don't think it doesn't appear just simple to me. I don't even know how they've come up with this or the numbers, and it's over history will tell you once you start these things, they grow and grow and grow, and then they become uncontrollable. And I'm not interested in doing that.
The term you're looking for, it has legs, or
Yeah.
mission creep. God, I wish you had this discussion 35 years ago when I got out of an institute of higher learning. And I told you who my instructors were. PhD, piled higher and deeper, and that was from the instructor, and an MD, all in this field, mental health, well, criminal health. Boots on the ground. Picture me 40 years ago at a certain high school that initials had MM. They're all dead now. lousy administration, lousy superintendent. But by God, we're gonna put dishonorably discharged soldiers from Fort Lewis in the vocational program who were court-martialed for stealing artillery shells. Let's put them in the VOAG program and destroy it. That's exactly what the administration at that school and the Longview administration did. They destroyed a award-winning program at Arlong, taught by the late Harold Gilkey, class of 37 OSC. I know somebody who went to OSC too. Destroyed that program. He had enough prestige for all the scum that came from the army to, okay, if you don't want to learn, write your name on the wall, get the hell out. That was the only way you could maintain order without having the fisticuffs. Okay, let's go over to that other school, MM. We had 3 candidates. They didn't tell us anything about them. And they came in one morning before class at 7:30 in the morning. They didn't like getting up at 7:30. Must be one of the reasons they were court-martialed. Dishonorably discharged, no benefits, 3 of them. And I'm the first in the classroom. And they come up to me and they wanted to start a fight. I said, fine, let's go. Well, I had a double whammy. Unfortunately, my parents worked for the Washington or the Longview School District. And the administrator of the building called up another administrator that had my last name. Bill, you know what Steve did? I'll take care of it. And when I got home, he did take care of it. So that's what happens when you put these people back into high school. That's what night school's for. Get them the hell out of the public high school. They can go to LCC and take night courses. And then they can be arrested over there instead of at that school with MM. After I got reprimanded, so to speak, by a certain man for tearing up the room for the fight. When you put these people back in the high school, now it's even worse. It won't be just fists, it'll be knives and guns. So you're putting high school students at risk. If they want to get their GED, go to LCC, take night courses. Don't bust up the high school and have another administrator bust up the kid who was trying to stop the fight. And you're looking at him right here. So that's what can happen, Mr. Dahl, when you put these people back in the public circulation. Hell, they were stealing artillery shells from the army and they put them back in public school. You got to be nuts. That was 40 years ago.
I think we're talking 2 different.
I have some notes here and I'm happy to try to get some more information and
Yeah.
maybe circle back with the board at a work session or something.
Could we do that?
Yep.
Are you good with that?
Yeah.
I- Like I said, I
Sounds
don't
good.
know that we're against this thing. I'm just trying to get a better idea of longer term implications if we do.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, and what the need is, because I personally, and I'm just talking one child, I know that he's had that support, so.
That
Okay.
sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we open the public comments, just to let you know, the 18th, which is tomorrow, right? Budget workshop, it's on the equipment revolving fund where Public Works will be in. They told us yesterday, expect probably a 2-hour meeting. So it'll be a lot of information there. Next Tuesday, Employee Excellent Awards will happen here at 10 a.m. And the 25th, not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, there'll be a budget workshop on the mental health tax. Okay, we're open to public comment.
Just move the microphone.
Well.
Where I was going, Commissioner Dahl, right now, in the world. We have 3 carrier battle groups in harm's way. You're putting young men in this country in harm's way. And your party doesn't have a Speaker of the House. He's third in line should something happen to the Secretary of State. The excuse me. You have the President, the Vice President, the Secretary of State,
Speaker of the House.
and Speaker of the House. That's 4.
Before this, before the Secretary of State.
Right. Okay, you don't have a Speaker of the House. Your party, it's a Mickey Mouse show. And in today's paper, it was kind of funny. To pick one, they suggested log rolling. And we just got done with one of those events, the 100th anniversary of Longview. It's not really funny. These men are facing probably one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world, but they're backed up by the best combat army in the world. If you've ever met an IDF soldier, Israeli Defense Force, you don't want to mess with them. They're good. And their equipment's good because we provided 75% of it. Anyway, you got 2 of those carrier battle groups and 20,000 men were just notified for call up. What the hell are we going to do with the division? You got another battle group in the Formosa Straits. Bad place to be. We sunk most of the Japanese merchant navy there in World War II. You're a civics teacher, you know that. Anyway, ending world national problems, which you can't do anything about, except, do you have any draft age children? Do you, Mr. Mortensen?
I suspect so, even grandkids.
Right.
Not children, but grandkids.
I know you have grandkids.
Yeah.
Do you have any draft age?
They don't draft 4-year-olds.
You'd be surprised. What about you, Commissioner Dahl? Any draft age children?
Yeah, I have one serving in the Air Force,
Good. Is he on
grandchild.
active duty?
He is.
And they're moving bomber groups to England now. And they're also moving bomber groups to Okinawa and Guam. Is what unit is he in? A fighter, bomber?
I couldn't
Ground
tell you.
support.
Ground support.
Yeah. Okay, fine. And you don't, your party doesn't have a Speaker of the House. And if, you know how expensive it is to field a field army or a fleet? You know where all the money comes from? Who has the purse strings? Congress. And you don't have a Speaker of the House. Now, I don't care if you like the Commander in Chief or not. If you wear one of these things, you obey him, what party, whatever he is. You don't like him? Remember this, his dead son was the only member of Congress who was a child that served in the military during the Gulf mess. The only member of Congress when he was a senator. People seem to forget that. They focus on the bad son. Into that, we're out of national. Let's go to Cowlitz County. Have you ever seen this?
I've heard of
It
it.
just came out. You've seen it.
I've heard of it, yeah.
What about Commissioner Dahl? Well, based on Monopoly, it's kind of funny. And you know, the famous square, you know, this don't pass go. Well, they got a new square
Uh-oh.
and it's, you don't get any money. Well, if you embezzle, you do. And it says, all public elected officials and public employees in Cowlitz County who commit a crime, they don't pass go. They go directly to indictment. You'll have to inform Prosecutor Javinican of this, please. You remember I alluded to a mystery in Public Works. Well, it's been clarified. And there really should be, either you start investigating what's happening in your own departments, or the attorney, he's too busy running for governor, don't worry about him. Go to the US District Attorney up in Tacoma and ask for an investigation of your public works. You need to do that.
I appreciate the segue there on national events real quick. I wasn't going to talk about this, but since he mentioned it, those documents that former President Trump was showing at Bedminster were vulnerabilities the Israelis suffered, and they were given to the Iranians, and that information made its way into Hamas's hands. So that's going to come out. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and Commissioners Mortensen and Dahl. I wanted to address a punch list of sorts covering some of the board's latest misguided forays into the culture wars that you pretend is prudent public policy. Several weeks ago, Commissioner Mortensen gave a sermon on the scourge of litter in our county and how it's a problem that bad neighbors and careless scofflaws harm the rest of us with illegal dumping. Commissioner Mortensen is correct. None of us has the right to carelessly dispose of our garbage and waste in such a way that other people are harmed. I wonder though, Commissioner Mortensen, how many Cowlitz County citizens have been killed by their neighbor's trash? Probably zero. And yet, so far, at least 435 of your fellow citizens, your constituents, are dead from COVID. How is a person carelessly and irresponsibly shedding and spreading a deadly virus to their neighbors something that you not only don't want to address, you have actively sought to protect and champion with your constant efforts to undermine public safety measures? You even go further and draft childish proclamations that state an individual's right to litter a deadly virus willy-nilly is somehow sacrosanct. Heck, Chairman Dahl, will you please get order in the room here?
Yeah.
I have a First Amendment right to speak just like Mr. Shea does. Commissioner Dahl,
Yeah.
will you please remove him from the room if he can't behave? Thank you. Heck, you and the Board of Health are still at it with your latest efforts to again memorialize how brazenly and bizarrely misinformed a governing body can be with your latest efforts at a new proclamation. A few weeks ago, this board had the opportunity to highlight and celebrate the legal community over the vitally important pro bono work that is performed on behalf of low-income citizens navigating our legal system. Despite Commissioner Weber's best efforts, and I do thank you for that, Commissioner Weber, Commissioners Mortensen and Dahl killed the proclamation and even went as far as derisively mocking it as needless, performative, and a waste of time. For a board that fancies itself as a champion of constitutionality, it's pretty telling how you don't view an individual's inalienable right to fairly access our legal system as something worthy of proclamation. It's especially ironic because you just passed another needless and performative proclamation in support of the only enumerated amendment to the Bill of Rights you apparently care about, which brings us to Gators Guns. So let's talk for a moment about the brazen law breaking that allegedly has been occurring there and how laughably irresponsible and misguided your most recent proclamation is. If the Second Amendment literally means an individual's right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, where's your proclamation unequivocally stating firearm prohibitions on felons is unconstitutional? Why can't 10-year-olds buy guns? How can you possibly countenance a prohibition on firearms in this very room? What if Gators Guns believes the Class 3 license process is big government infringement? Would you support them illegally selling full auto weapons? How about M203 grenade launchers that affix to AR platform rifles? Heck, there are people in this room who believe the Second Amendment means the citizenry must have access to the same arms our government and military possess. If Gators started selling grenades, claymore mines, armed drones, and tactical nukes, that would also fall under Second Amendment protections using your literal interpretation, would it not? On another subject, more recently, Commissioner Dahl dazzled us with how deeply he does not understand anthropogenic climate change, citing 1975 computer modeling that has long since been corrected. Mr. Dahl would have us believe that because scientists were wrong about something then, they can't possibly be right about something now. Dr. Mortensen chimed in to quip about his doctoral work with modeling and how it can be manipulated, as if punch card computers and slide rule calculators are still cutting edge technology. Gentlemen, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's real, or in this case, not real. Finally, I want to talk about Hope Village. A few weeks ago, one of your faithful congregants sat at this microphone. I don't see her in the audience today, unfortunately. She told an outlandish lie about Hope Village. She boldly proclaimed only 19 people are being served at Hope Village, and not the 49 that actually live there at any given time. What's worse, her grotesque and hatefully motivated act of bearing false witness was based on a secondhand account made by a friend who was looking through the chain link fence. But her lie wasn't challenged by the board, because two of you want as much misinformation about Hope Village in the public space as possible. Two of you want to gaslight the public for as long as you can about what Hope Village is. And of course, the two commissioners I'm referring to have never even been to Hope Village. Commissioners Mortensen and Dahl have frequently cited a lack of data as justification for their opposition to Hope Village. Now that Hope Village has been running for 10 months, here are some facts that I want my fellow citizens to understand. The Salvation Army is projecting their operating cost for the first year will be under $900,000, a full 40% under budget. What other civic project can claim a cost saving like that? Opponents of Hope Village like to say it's too expensive. Indeed, a current candidate for Longview City Council has a bald-faced lie published on his campaign website. And it's a lie that has been uttered countless times in this very room by members of this commission. Yes, the cost to purchase the pallet shelters and site preparation was around $1.5 million. And now we know the operating cost for the first year will be less than $900,000. Commissioner Dahl, when you calculate the cost of your fuel for a road trip to the Harley-Davidson factory in Wisconsin, do you factor in the cost of your motorcycle? Do you say it cost you $20,300 to get there and back? Or do you just say it cost you $300? You just say $300. And yet the number being thrown around here is that Hope Village costs over $2 million and it only serves 50 people. In fact, Hope Village is on track to have served 242 people in its first year. $900,000 divided by 242 is $50.32 per day per person. That's only $8.18 assessed for every citizen of Cowlitz County, who all benefit from Hope Village existing. Compare that with road work on, say, Tower Road or Pleasant Hill. Those only serve a few dozen people and cost considerably more, yet we all shoulder the burden. The average length of stay at Hope Village is 80 days. That's $4,025 billed to the taxpayer for a whole array of life-changing services. Because of your cowardice and indifference, that burden is currently saddled to the citizens of Longview, even though Hope Village serves the entire county. Did you know incarcerating someone for 80 days in the Cowlitz County Jail for a gross misdemeanor costs the taxpayer a minimum of $8,264, and that individual receives comparatively no services? Not only is Hope Village a massive bargain for the taxpayer you purport to slavishly serve, and the actual benefit to society is immeasurable, especially compared to draconian efforts to arrest our way out of homelessness, like many opponents of Hope Village advocate trying. Irrefutably, supporting Hope Village is the true conservative approach. So do it. You were wrong about your projections, which you used to justify your recalcitrance. What is your excuse now? Because make no mistake, people who had agreed with you no longer do. Citizens of Longview who didn't support Hope Village at the time are now starting to see it is successful and how unfair it is that something that benefits the entire county is being foisted only on Longview taxpayers' shoulders. You could still change course, honor and satisfy your past demands for compelling data and outcomes, and do the right thing. Will you? Thank you for giving me more time than I probably would have taken. It's been a while since I've been here. Do any of you have any questions about Hope Village? Have you been there yet, Commissioner Dahl?
I was there January 23rd, 2023.
You toured Hope Village. You've
did.
been through it.
I did.
Are you familiar with the success rates they have now? How many people have graduated from Hope Village successfully that are now placed in permanent housing, that are no longer offending your eyes on the streets of Longview?
You
You
don't have to
don't-
deal with Longview to track all their stuff.
Do you know how many people have graduated from Hope Village?
I don't keep track of their data.
You don't keep track. You're the commissioner of Cowlitz County, but you don't keep track of the largest city endeavoring in this important work. You don't pay attention to that, yet you make decisions that impact it.
Well, we differ on how important you think that work is.
41 people have been saved.
They've gone from one form of free housing to another form of free housing. And the others have just been dispersed around the
That's a
county.
lie. You just uttered a lie.
They haven't solved a
You
problem.
just uttered a lie
I
about those
just
people.
disagree with you. That's it.
You can't disagree with facts.
Yeah, you don't have facts. You have theories.
You don't know about those 41 people. To say that they are on some other form of subsidy is wrong.
You don't know either.
I do know.
No, you don't.
My friend Jim, who is a Vietnam veteran, is paying $900 a month out of his pocket to stay at the Monticello Hotel.
We need to get.
He's
the other
not being
people to talk.
subsidized for that. You're wrong about that. And
Tom,
it's
let's
telling that you
let's let
can't
other
admit you're
people
wrong.
talk, okay? Thank
It's
you.
telling you can't admit you're wrong, Commissioner Dahl.
Anybody else?
First of all, I have a very important announcement to make today. This is probably the greatest day in Longview, over in our biggest city. It happens to be Shea Day. That's right. Today is the day that we celebrate dedicating the Shea train, and it's a very special event. I encourage everyone to get over there and check out that beautiful train with the perfect name. Yeah. So, I wanted to talk about COVID a little bit today. It's kind of funny that previous speaker brought up some of this stuff about COVID. And, I'm still on the fact that I believe I'm sorry, Gina left, but I feel like we really deserve an apology from the misinformation that was put out by that department during this COVID period of time. I think it's very important. I think it's important people know that, they had people wearing 2 masks. And I don't remember anybody ever saying 2 masks, or, you can just go back to 1. Did they say that at some point in time? I missed that. Or they said, have your 2 masks. Now you're going to get okay again with 1 mask. Why don't we just tell people that it's okay? It's safe out here. You'll live. You don't need a mask. It didn't work in the first place. And it's ridiculous when people wear them around in public now. It just looks silly. So that's my pitch about that I've made before. I'd really like to see an apology from DSHS. And I think that'd be an important step forward to get on the other side of this thing. And some kind of guarantee that they're not gonna put out this kind of crap information again. And while I'm up here, taxation is theft. Let's not forget that this mental health tax is still going around. And something I noticed when I was reading through the agenda stuff, and I thought, boy, for what is it, 1/2 of 1% of some kind of percent? I mean, it is tiny amount. But look at all the people that want to keep this thing going, to just hang on to a tax. It's like you got the tax, you just can't let it go. And I just propose, you know, you can let this little tax go, help the regular people out around here a little bit. Then maybe we could work on a bigger tax, you know, just saying. You got something more? Oh, see my shirt up there? I think it's on TV. Yeah. It's trillions, by the way. And where'd my money go? Tom left. God dang it, I was running into the ground there. He's there. Howard.
Better watch out, might get COVID. Anyway, evidently the person with the face diaper has never done research and read the real Fauci, the real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It took me about 4 months to get through it. And it's based on facts. And while these people are out there putting on their face mask, their diaper face mask, whatever you want to call it, it hurts my soul to the core that those diapers on their face, the material, the chemicals that are in them actually cause scar tissue to their lungs, and you can't ever do anything about it. It's permanent. And all this stuff that they're bringing back with the COVID, you reverse it, the COVID, and it means Devat, which means evil. And the 19 means AI, artificial intelligence. But anyway, whenever I see people with these and the children, they're like, put the children back. Because I've seen mothers standing in line wherever, and here's the child, they're holding him, and the child's trying to see the parent. And that's all they can see, okay? It's like, how would I have felt as a child if I couldn't see my mom and dad's expressions? This COVID is a scam, and the presidential election is coming up again. So we got to get these masks back on, keep people, mailing in the freaking ballots and stuff. We got to keep them scared. That's what it's all about, is fear. Well, I have no fear. I have no fear because I know that if I do die, the shell of the human body is gone. But no matter what, your soul, your spirit lives on. And whether you go up or down, that's however you've done spiritually with your life. But I'm just so sick and tired of this crap with this COVID. I suggest, if I would have known that was coming up today, I would have brought my book and showed it to you. But you can look it up. The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And it's got the facts, just the facts. And it's got different people, different doctors, like Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Naomi Wolf with dailyclout.io. There's just so many. And it's an incredible read if you read it. And people, I did have to get my medical dictionary, my regular dictionary, because there's words in there I had to learn because some of them are like over my head. So I was like trying to learn. And there's times you have to, look it up again because it's just new words like medical words and stuff you don't understand. So you got to learn to understand what they mean and keep relearning. But it's just crazy. And I'm so sorry, especially to these children, that you guys, I'm pretty sure some of you get this. But anyway, for God's sake, really, spiritually, it's like this is a fraud. And it also helps when you have all these illegals coming up over the border. And I saw this video of this mom standing there. She starts putting on all the stuff and the hoodies and the masks and stuff. And she goes, now I can abduct your child and you can't tell who I am. And I'm like, wow, she's got a really great point there. Anyway, all these illegals, they're waiting for the freaking call from whoever's, well, I call him Biden because it's Obama that's running him. And anybody that has a brain can figure it out, look at the administration or the regime. So with that said, it's like, we just got to put a stop to some of this insanity. But that guy is evidently not the correct research. And by the way, I would like to meet up with one of you and go to Hope Village with you and check out the buildings. I don't need to really look inside. I just want to look at the outside because there's things I've learned about those buildings or pallet homes. And I just want to see if what I've learned is correct. So I want to know for a fact rather than assume. Anyway, yeah, there's just so many things going on. And another thing too, is like with disability parking, I'm noticing that like used to be like near where you had to go in someplace, but you start getting to apartment complexes and you're like way down here, your apartment's over here, but everybody else that's not disabled has their parking right by their apartment. But anyway, one of the guys over at the Longview City Council gave me a card and I did get a phone call yesterday, but I was busy when I got the phone call. So I listened to the voice messages last night and I've got to get a hold of him, which he left his number, but I've got to say, you know what, you need to come out, go with me so I can show you where my apartment is and show you where I've got to park, because I don't know if he talked to the manager or not, but she hasn't said a word to me. And one time we crossed paths on the sidewalk in the apartment complex. And I said, it'd be really nice if there was disabled parking closer to my apartment. And she goes, yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? And I was just like, I'm sorry, I've just like had it. And just the excuses, like this person, he was nice on the voice message, and I do have to return his call and say, you need to come out in person and talk to me. And that way I can show him what it means. Because if you go like to Kelso Rite Aid or something like that, they've got it pretty good set up there, you know. But it's like these people with these apartments, it's like they just have to have so many and so far apart. But I was just like, I was so upset. I was in tears, okay? And so I had to take my vehicle this morning and put some stuff in it, back it up and take and park it. There's a gal that's gone for a while and she told me I could use her space. Next thing I know, I'm going in and out of my apartment and a nice person came out and said, hi, good morning. I was like, good morning. Anyway, and I finished my stuff, but it's like the one that I actually marked that matches my apartment number is like my neighbors, but it's on the other side of me. But it's like when you look at the parking space, it's my parking space. And another neighbor that lives on the other side of me has that one, but that one's mine. And so anyway, I've got to follow up with that. But this stuff, it's like whenever there's an election, then there's COVID again. And I think Fauci's already been fried. If not, I guess he's going to be facing a tribunal. So
Yeah.
Anyway, and let's pray and go from there. Anyway, thank you for your time.
I love the country we live in, and it's high time that we quit looking to government for all our solutions and all our answers. People are free to choose. If someone wants to wear a mask, that's fine. I don't think we have to be forced into it again like we did before, but you guys have already addressed that. We don't need to keep going over that. I don't know why we want to make this so complicated. And we want, in one case, we say, government, don't do this. In the other place, we want government to come in and dictate to a private owner of an apartment complex how they ought to set up their parking. I mean, our solutions, again, as individuals living in this great country, is to come together collectively and try to make a decision and work with those that are the decision makers for that, and not try to get government officials to come in there and say, thou shalt this or thou shalt not do that. So I feel like you guys have been pretty consistent at trying to make those decisions based on something as simple as that, you know, that bigger picture of the kind of thing without, again, putting people to a hole, and saying, again, just being so restrictive with that and not seeing that bigger picture. So and you guys are so patient. You're a good example to me. Thanks.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, I've begun to get contacts about the new tax assessment that went out, and I noticed Emily is in the audience. If she wanted to say something in general, this might be a good time with your permission.
As you guys know, I try to be responsive, so I decided to come sit here and listen in case there were any questions or concerns. We have we have been getting citizen inquiries in the office. It's going very well this year. We got our ratio back from the state. We got an 89.5, meaning we're about 10% low. But I think that's a conservative number.
If you could explain what you just said.
So for those who don't know, our office gets audited by the state every year. And what they do is they take our assessed values and compare them to the sale prices of homes. And we get a ratio. So if, let's say, just even numbers, easy numbers, if a house sells for 100,000,
Rose.
100,000,
Much better.
and our assessed value is 100,000, it's 100%, very similar to a grade in school. If our house sells for 100,000 and we have 90,000, we're low, obviously we'd get a 90%. If the house sells for 100,000 and we're at 110, we'd get 110%. So that's how it works. And then they take every sale that's a valid sale in the county and compare everything and then give us a ratio. So we got that back this week and it's at 89.5, meaning again, we're a little low, but I think that's okay. Anyway, we've had very good questions from the citizens, a lot of interest in the changes to the senior program that starts in 2024. So we're encouraging them to come back with their income documents in February when they've got their 23 documents back. But overall, it's going very well. We're anticipating starting to see a roll through of appeals that come from the Board of Equalization. There was a little bit of change this year regarding the Board of Equalization. So I'm anticipating sometime soon we'll see that come through. Anyway, the citizens have been great to deal with. We've answered a lot of questions. And I was just here in case you guys had any come up today so I could be responsive.
One quick statement then, how soon do they have to bring to the attention of the Board of Equalization before it's too late? They have about a month from receipt?
So they have a 30-day appeal window, and a lot of people, we can pretty easily look at any inquiries and tell a person in general, we have sales to support that, or we agree that there might be something wrong. Everybody has to remember that we have about almost 60,000 parcels we have to value every single year. And so there's always going to be nuances that we miss or something that we didn't know. So we encourage people, especially if they have something going on at their house. Let's say we didn't realize their garage burnt down or something. We need to know all that information. But in general, we're able to deal with a lot of it outside of the appeal process, but they have 30 days from the day of the notice to appeal. So
they could say, I want to go before the board, but that may take some time, right? But they have to identify themselves within that period of time. And then they might get talked to in a month, 3 months, 6 months. During that time, they're perfectly welcome to come to your office, are they not?
yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, we try to be as responsive as possible in that 30-day appeal window when they come to us and talk to us. However, there's going to be some that we just can't get to by the end of the window. And so we always say, we're going to do our best to be responsive and get back to you. However, if it gets close, we do encourage you to appeal. That way you reserve your right for that appeal. Again, we don't have any control over the Board of Equalization. It's a separate entity that is completely aside from us. And so as far as scheduling of hearings and all that stuff, we're just the response to that. So any other questions?
On the, you say the state comes in and audits you every year. Is there a point where, say you come back 50%? I mean, is there a point where the state says, hey, you fix this or we'll fix it?
Yeah, there's thresholds there. We're a little bit lower this year, but I was trying to be somewhat responsive to the fact that we did anticipate a decline that didn't turn out to be quite the decline we were going for. And so I think last year we were a 93% ratio. However, the other thing that did change that allows me to feel a little bit better about being low is that the McCleary Act sunsetted, and that is beneficial to our taxpayers. And they were equalizing our rate. So if I came in at 93%, they were increasing the rate of the tax for the McCleary Act to get us to 100%. Now that we are done with that, there is no penalty or anything for not being at 100%.
Okay,
And it doesn't change the amount of tax that gets collected. As you guys know, it's a budget-based system. Each of the districts submits their budget and that's what gets collected. The assessed values don't generate revenue. So there's no really downside to not being at 100%.
yeah, okay.
I'm told that the number of sales of existing homes has gone down.
It depends on the area. Some areas we've seen a decrease, some areas we're still seeing an increase.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
We all thought that we were going to see a decrease across the board, and it hasn't quite turned out. And again, as a reminder for everybody that the assessed values that have gone out in the mail now are based on 2022 sales. So we are always a year behind.
A year.
So anything that's happened since January is not reflected in the sales for last year.
Emily, as you know, the city of Longview is celebrating their centennial. That also means that there's an awful lot of housing stock that's hit the centennial year also. Do you see any trends where assessed values are going down because the houses are aging out, so to speak, to use a different term?
That has not been something we have noticed.
Something to look forward to in 2024.
Yeah. Some people pay extra for that history.
Just because you're old doesn't mean you have no value, you know.
We call that effective age.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, thank you for taking some time, Emily.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys helping with any inquiries that come in. Mr. Mortensen has been wonderful at passing those along. We're always happy to talk to anybody. So just send them our way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have no meeting this afternoon, 1:30. We had nothing on the docket, so 1:30 meeting this afternoon is not it. Any other comments before we?
Trying to help her because court thing that happened yesterday.
Is your light on?
No, it's not. It's there. Thank you. Anyway, yesterday, I really appreciate that, Commissioner Dahl. But anyway, yesterday, trying to listen to the judge. I don't know, I think somebody said something about he had a problem, like he had to speak softly. Maybe he was a little under the weather, but it was really hard to hear. And I was sitting toward the front. But the one thing I really want to emphasize about the mask is whenever, like, we were growing up, if somebody was in a business and somebody walked in with the mask, is like, hands up, that kind of thing. And I just wish that people would realize that we grew up, if somebody had a bandana on them or that kind of thing, you were gonna get robbed. And right now, they're trying to condition us for agenda, what is it, 2030? And so therefore, that's why, I mean, like, if somebody was having like dental work and they needed to cover that up, I understand that. So it's kind of, rocking a hard stone there. But anyway, thank you.
Any other?
In regards to Paradise Cove RV Park, it looks like the state's attorney's agreed in our favor. And I have a couple questions for you guys. What is your earnings, the council members here that sit in front of us on an annual basis?
What do they pay us?
Yes, correct.
I think we're right. I know generally where I'm at. I think I'm right around 86.
Okay.
I don't know the exact.
And my other question is, who represents the county if there's any kind of suit against them or the county? Who's your lawyers in town? Excuse me, sir?
The prosecuting attorney is our lawyer.
Okay,
He has a staff that takes care of that.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
The reason why McCarthy is not there anymore is because he tried to impeach Joe Biden. And I don't know, that's what the gentleman was saying. He was saying, where's our House representative? And our House representative is gonna be a Democrat right now. And in fact, segue a little bit, in 1917, they had a flu epidemic. And the reason why we don't have it, the reason why they didn't have it then is because they didn't have this, our phone. And I don't have my phone, it's over back there. But anyways, I'm thinking that the reason why McCarthy tried to impeach Biden is because, and Biden fired him because he's got $4.5 trillion infrastructure. And like I say, I'm just trying to say the statistics of the COVID thing is like 5-10%, and of the world, maybe I'm not right, but I'm thinking I am. And but I just thank you.
Earlier in the meeting, there was a discussion about presidential succession and confusion on who came first, second, and third. It is actually of interest to the state of Washington. The president is followed by the vice president. Next in line is the Speaker of the House. If there's not a Speaker of the House, it goes to the President Pro Tem of the Senate, who currently happens to be a woman by the name of Patty Murray. So there you go. And then it goes to the cabinet in order of creation of the department. So then the Secretary of State's involved, but just to kind of do my history lesson for today. I didn't remember it until Steve had left.
Okay. Well, we always appreciate your time, even if you don't agree with us. We try to be patient and let you say your piece, and we just appreciate you participating in the process. That's what it's about. So with that, seeing nothing else, we will adjourn. Thank you.
How are you?